sixth and last in the series on parenting conversations. We don't imagine in any way that we have presented all the definitive information on parenting that you might get from the Bible. So if you've got further questions, or if there's a topic that we've not addressed that you would like us to, do let us know, and we will cover that at some point soon. On this last one, we just wanted to do a couple of book reviews in terms of notes that we found useful in reading the Bible with our kids. Here's one that we used with very young children. So as soon as they could talk, really. In fact, before that, when they enjoyed the lovely, bright, colourful pictures, we've been using the Jesus Storybook Bible. It's a great book for small children. It takes selected stories all through the Bible, but shows how the Old and the New Testaments is all centered around the person of the Lord Jesus. Each story is wonderful in the way that it gets very quickly to the nub of the gospel, and they are beautifully written and beautifully drawn. Guys, have you got another one that you wanted to show?
Yeah, I've got quite a few if you want me to do them. These are more sort of on the parenting issue. There are lots and lots of books written on parenting, obviously, and a lot from a Christian point of view and from Christians. Anything by a lady called Anne Benton. They're very good. She's got a number of titles. One's called Parenting Against the Tide. There's another one called Aren't They Lovely When They're Asleep, which is a good title, I think. And another one along the same line, which is called Teenagers, Biblical Wisdom for Parents, Putting Parenting to Bed. And these are all titles that you can check up on Amazon. They're quite cheap little books, but they're very good and sound Christian, helpful parenting books by Anne Benton. So you might want to check those out. There's another little series of books which are published by Day One. And there's this one here, which is called Help My Toddlers Rule the House. And I think that's pretty important. It's one of the central things we've been saying over the last few weeks is about the modern practice of child-centered parenting, which sounds wonderful and is actually dreadful. And so it speaks about how you can get around that sort of problem, that ethos of making the child the center of your home. And we've said, not child-centered, not parent-centered, but God-centered, and how that is the answer, really. There's another one here on the same series called Help, My Teen is Rebellious. I'm sure nobody out there's got a rebellious teenager, so that must be pretty useless, but it may be helpful too, I don't know. These are short little book that's just about 50 pages in a small format, so easy to read. Another one here, it's called Help, I'm a Single Mum. I'm putting my finger over mum because it actually says mom, which I hate that. So it's Help, I'm a Single Mum. This is all published in this country, and there are many, many single mums out there. A lot of them are Christians, and it may well be helpful to you. Another one on an issue, Children and Divorce. This is a very helpful little booklet, which is published by New Growth Press, and there are a lot of children who are victims of divorce. And when I say they're victims even if a divorce happens for all sorts of reasons, and it's understandable sometimes it's the right thing to do, even though it's an awful thing to happen. The children are always the victims, whatever the situation of a divorce. And that's a very useful book, just a few pages, but it's so helpful. And then just a couple more I mention, which are not Christian books, but The Secret of Happy Children, which is a very famous book by Steve Biddulph, who's a family therapist, and his wife. It's been in print now for many years, but it's very, very practical. He's not a professing Christian, but it's written from a very Christian ethos. No Christian will find any problem with anything he says. Very useful. And there was a sequel to that called more secrets of happy children. And again, very, very practical, very helpful books. And you can recommend those, even though I say he's not expressly Christian, he comes from a spiritual type of background, but there's nothing in there which you'd have a problem with as a Christian. And I'd certainly recommend those books. That's me done.
That's awesome.
Can
Go
I
on,
share
John.
a couple more then?
Go for it.
Here is the Gospel Story Bible. This is for children who are a bit older than the Jesus Storybook Bible, maybe 5 and up. With this, again, lovely, colourful pictures, very short, 5 minutes to read it. That's absolutely great. And then as they get a bit older, so this has been great for my children recently. So my oldest children range from 10 to 6 years old, and by the same author as this, Martin Machowski, is the Long Story Shorts, and these are Bible devotions. So you read a bit of the Bible, and it's got an explanation and some questions to ask your children, and it's great. It gets the conversation going, and something to pray at the end as well. So we've been doing that over meals, 10 minutes maximum to go through that, and we found doing something that's short and regular is so much better than trying to be too ambitious and taking ages. So, I eat quicker than they do. I have my first course, I read it for them, and then whilst they're having pudding, I'm asking them questions, and it's great. They enjoy it. When we forget, they remind us because they want to do it. We've finished that now, and so we're kind of trying out some other things afterwards. But one thing that they absolutely love is something called the Action Bible. This is the plot line of the Bible done in comic book, graphic novel format, and the girls are reading through that and absolutely loving it. I mean, I've got all girls, but boys would absolutely love it as well. You should see the way their Bible knowledge has grown as they've been reading this graphic novel of the Bible. I heartily recommend that as well.
Cool. Well, I'll talk a little while about some of the stuff that we use. I got a big pile of things which are great for little ones, but just to take it in a different kind of direction. This is old school. This is an old school children's Bible. You can probably find it in Sunday school rooms up and down the country, probably up and down across the world, to be honest. And this was given to me on the 3rd of February 91 at my christening. And I've still got it. I've read a little bit when I was kind of growing up, but now I'm reading through it with the girls, and it is brilliant, actually. The stories are really short. They're adapted in such a good way for children, but staying really, really close to the actual kind of content in the Bible, because I found that various children's Bibles, some of them can go quite far in terms of interpretation, doing some of the teaching work for you. This one is really good at just telling the story, but also giving beautiful pictures as well. So this is great. This is a book called the New International Version of the Bible. And I suppose talking about all the different resources, I think we can maybe forget that whatever age children are, then actually you have your own gifts given to you. You know your children better than anyone else, and you'll know how to teach them the Word of God. So don't just leave it up to other publishers and all that, putting together in nice pictures. You have the Bible in a language that you can understand. I'm not saying that you should go to absolutely every passage and tell them all the gory bits, but I think that it needs to be said that don't feel like this is inaccessible to your children either. This is for them as well. And then also on a different kind of note, church. church is a wonderful resource. The people of God. We see a pattern in the New Testament setup where the Apostle Paul urges people like Titus and Timothy to get the older generations to come alongside and train and teach the younger ones. So young mums are told, go and learn, be a disciple in effect to older generations who've kind of been there, gone through it, and teach them the old ways. It's not really the trendy thing to be done, but there is, like, it's more valuable than any of the books that we've been saying, and it is kind of free for youth, and it's a wonderful blessing to have to share the journey of parenting with others. And I'm sure there are people in Grace Church who are ready and willing and will pray for you. No book's going to do that, is it? So we have living resources here at your disposal, full of the Holy Spirit, full of God's wisdom to teach you and to come alongside you. And I just want to close my little bit talking about YouTube and different children's videos. We've had DVDs and things like Praise Baby and things, and there's all sorts of things on YouTube. Very engaging animation, and I'm not going to list them all, and some are better theologically than others. But what I would say is take all of them with a grain of salt. Don't just outsource the Bible teaching to YouTube, because the bright pictures and the music will zap their attention, and they will become those TV zombies that maybe we are too familiar with. But as John was saying about meal times and all this, we have a very, very special opportunity to teach the Bible, and for them not just to remember the Bible and to think of these stories as precious, but that time can be precious. So use it. I think it's worth us really emphasizing written literature, which we need to speak and read out aloud to them, rather than just saying, watch this video and that will teach you all it is. No, let's learn together, and let's do it that way. Have a bonding experience so that they're good. All the different YouTube videos and the different DVDs you can buy, but I think there are dangers where we can rely on them too much and miss out on other blessings from other means.
Have you guys thought much about bedtime stories? And are there any good Christian bedtime stories that you've been enjoying with your kids?
Too long ago. No, I used to. I tended to give our son nightmares when I gave him his bedtime stories. So I gave up because I wanted him to sleep through the night. And yeah, it's best to leave it.
Well, bedtime stories are a great time, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're done very well. I'm sure your children go to sleep during yours.
Well, whether they're Christian or not, it's a lovely time if you choose the book well, if it's an exciting book. But we've been working our way through the novels of Patricia St. John recently, and she's got some great books with lovely gospel themes in them. And I mean, we've done other things as well. The Hounds of the Morrigan, Catherine's just done with our girls, but the Patricia St. John books are a particular treat when we read one of those.
Yeah, and then if they're a bit older, I mean, obviously the Narnia books are great, aren't they? And I certainly remember going through those with ours, and just loved going through them. The whole series of books, they're the C.S. Lewis Narnia books. Most famous being, of course, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
They were the first books I read on my own. Love them.
Yeah.
I think it's worth reading non-Christian books with children, just whatever is, like we read a ton of Julia Donaldson stuff. That's kind of the stage that we're at, the Gruffalo and the Smartest Giant in Town and all that. And I think starting even when they're little, talking about the story. So if there is someone who is kind, saying, isn't that kind, and applying it to Jesus, or if someone, and just picking it up like we would with any kind of non-Christian media, films or whatever, you would want to it's called kind of worldview training, isn't it? Worldview. So seeing what the worldview is from the author's perspective. What world are they building? How do they see it all? And trying to see the values there and what's important, and then to see how trace it through to Jesus. So
yeah, that's I mean, important, isn't it, with everything that you I think as parents we know what our children are reading, we know what our children, even more relevantly, are watching, particularly on TV. I think it's, you know, you wouldn't have to sit with your child all the time, but I think you should definitely know that and talk things through, and certainly know what your children are watching and know that it's suitable, because unfortunately the TV is such a great baby soother, isn't it? You can plant them in front of the TV, and there are times when I guess all parents are grateful for that fact, but nonetheless, as a matter of principle, I think we need to be able to do that and do exactly what Dom has been suggesting, be able to talk it through, so that we're not shielding our children from the world, but we're gradually helping them to see more and more of stuff which is probably not very pleasant, but is part of the real world, and we can't. We'd like to cocoon them from the real world forever, but we can't, and that's not part of our parenting. And parenting is all about preparing children for a world which is not as we would always want it to be, and to be able to gradually show them these things, and as Dom says, differentiate between what is good and what is bad, and help them develop their judgment, is all very much part of parenting.
And how about this? Like things like Harry Potter. I mean, we're not going to talk about right and wrong and all that, but Harry Potter does have kind of witchcraft and magic in it, but it has the theme of redemption in it very strongly. Whereas you have Disney, which is all very cozy and cushy on the surface, but underneath it all, it is saying deep down everyone is ultimately good, and some people just make bad choices. And I think we need to be wary of not just categorizing things in terms of, oh, that looks a certain way and therefore let's steer clear. We need to actually delve into what is the underlying thought process and philosophy of the stuff that children are watching, because I think the message of Disney is actually one of the most poisonous things. I mean, we watch Disney and all that, but it's worth just taking a step back and trying to get children to think about it and to apply God's truth to those stories.
Yeah, you've got to, whatever culture you're consuming, you've got to do it with your brain switched on, haven't you? And we need to be renewed, transformed by the renewing of our minds, don't we? It's yeah.
There was a time when Christians would, you know, just lived in their own little subculture. Well, that's not being very helpful. We're supposed to be in the world and salt and light in the world. And if you only read books, you know, written by Christians or whatever, quite apart from anything else, you're going to miss the great literature of the world and everything else. And obviously there are great movies and great books and just the whole world of experience out there, which is produced by non-Christians. And it's so important that we can filter out and explain these things and give a Christian viewpoint on the world. Otherwise you just get, if you're not teaching your children how to deal with the world and see it through Christian eyes, then they're going to escape out of your care at some point or other, and they're going to be completely overwhelmed without having any preparation. So it is important that we are in the world in that sense, not of the world, but in the world. That's the distinction that the Bible makes.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, as John said at the beginning of this stream, we aren't pretending like this is the definitive conversation on parenting. We've got it all tied up. And if you're watching this in the future, then just know that we are available to have questions thrown at us and prayer requests thrown at us, and do come along to church. You can join us on Sundays in the fellowship meetings, and there are people in church that even now that we can't meet together in person, there are people who are willing to have phone call chats and support you if you're having trouble parenting. And God willing, when in his perfect timing and the government lifts the lockdown, do come and join us, and you can meet other parents who are going along and having similar challenges as you. And also there are people who've been there and done that and had the t-shirt covered in ketchup. So yeah, all that's to say is thank you very much. We hope that this has been a blessing to you and you've enjoyed it. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, John. And God bless.